Tell me, Muse, of the rover, the man who wandered far and wide after he sacked the holy city of Troy. Many the men whose cities he saw and learned their minds, and many the disasters he suffered on the sea, trying to save his life and bring his comrades home. Tell us, goddess, daughter of Zeus, some of that story.
So begins one of the finest stories ever told, and one of the most famous. It is by the Greek poet Homer. Its name is the Odyssey, which means the story of Odysseus. Odysseus, the ancient Greek adventurer, liar, and hero. The time is 3,000 years ago. The place is the Mediterranean Sea, studded with rocky islands, cut by tricky currents and raked by sudden storms. The Mediterranean is a challenge to every daring sailor. Odysseus himself, daring and skillful as he was wrecked and lost his ship and all his crew.
After we left the sun god's island, when no land appeared in sight, but all was only sea and sky, then the King of Heaven put a gloomy cloud above our hollow ship. The sea grew dark below. We sailed on for a little while, but suddenly the west wind roared upon us in a hurricane. A raging gust snapped through the ropes holding the mast. They broke. The mast fell backwards. All the sails and rigging collapsed into the hold, smashing the steerman's scull. Then Zeus above thundered and struck the ship with lightning, that all her timbers shivered under the crash of the bolt, smoking with sulfur. Overboard the sailors fell. Like gulls, they were carried away by the waves around the ship.
For us, the sea is the sea, water and weather and clouds and the blue sky above. The land is the land, earth, trees, mountains, not for the ancient Greeks.
For the ancient Greeks, the whole of nature was populated by gods and spirits. Islands, cities, mountains, the sea, all had their guardian divinities. And above them all, the embodiment of all power and justice was the king of gods and men, Father Zeus.
Shame upon all mankind. How they blame the gods. From us they say their troubles come, but they themselves, they suffer through their own willful folly and sin.
The Great War is over, the War of Troy. The kings of the Greek tribes besieged Troy for 10 long years. At last, by the trick of the wooden horse, they got inside the walls and captured the city, which now lies in ashes and ruins. Each with his little army and fleet, his loot and prisoners, they have set sail back to Greece. But few, very few of them returned safely. Listen to Nestor, oldest and wisest of the Greek kings, as he talks with Prince Telemachus, the son of Odysseus.
My boy, well I recall the misery that we gallant Greeks endured so long in the land of Troy. There lies bold Ajax buried. There Achilles lies. And there my own dear son, Antilochus, the brave. For 9 long years, we struggled to destroy the Trojans with every stratagem. God made our victory hard. And when at last we captured Priam's lofty city and sailed away to be wrecked or storm-tossed on the voyage, why then, even then, God made our homecoming a horror.
Some of the Greek princes offended heaven by committing an outrage during the sack of Troy or on the voyage home. Others made the return journey only to find that, well, 10 years is a long time. While they were away, rivals had taken over their palaces and their power, and sometimes even their wives, and were waiting to kill them. So died the leader of them all, King Agamemnon. When Odysseus visited the world of the dead, he saw his former chief among the ghosts and heard him tell the story.
Noble son of Laertes, wise and cunning Odysseus, I did not die at sea fighting a fearful storm. I was not attacked on land in open fight. No. Aegisthus planned and carried out my death, helped by my devilish wife. Inviting me to his home, he gave me dinner and killed me like an ox killed at the stall. There was a wretched death. All around me, my comrades were cut relentlessly down like pigs slaughtered for meat. You have witnessed the violent deaths of many men. Some killed in duels, some in the rough melee. But there was a sight which would have gripped your heart. To see us there beside the wine bowl and the feast lying felled to the ground, the floor seething with blood. Oh, with what anguish then I heard Cassandra screaming. That traitress Clytemnestra cut her down, clinging to me, while I lay dying on the ground, clutching the blade that killed me. Meanwhile, that she-wolf turned her back, and though my soul was leaving my body, she would not stretch a hand to close my mouth and eyes.
The cleverest of the Greek heroes was Odysseus. He needed all his wit and wiliness, for he had both these dangers to face: rivals taking over his home and the anger of a god.
Odysseus had angered Poseidon, god of the sea. So his fleet was destroyed in a storm. Later, his own crew offended the god of the sun by eating his sacred cattle. So they and the ship were sunk, while Odysseus was cast away on a remote island. And there he remained for 7 years, like one of the pathetic displaced persons left derelict at the end of the Second World War. Odysseus dropped out of sight. Meanwhile, his own kingdom, the island of Ithaca, and his own home were being taken over by rivals. These are the petty chiefs of Ithaca and the neighboring islands. They think Odysseus is dead, so they have moved into his house. Odysseus' only son, Telemachus, is still young, and he is all alone. What can he possibly do against them? Nothing but protest and appeal to their sense of justice.
Listen to me, you men of Ithaca. Hear my words. Not since King Odysseus sailed away with his fleet have we held council here or summoned a public meeting. And now, who has called us together? What is his purpose? To tell us news of some enemy force approaching? Or else to bring before us a matter of public concern?
Sir, it was I who called the people together here. I have no news of invasion, no matter of public concern. But I have a private worry, the troubles of my home. First, I have lost my father, the noble King Odysseus, who ruled among you here as kindly as a father. And then there is something worse, which means complete destruction for me, my home and family, property and life. My mother is besieged by suitors against her will. These are the young sons of the noblemen hereabouts. All day, every day, they haunt my father's palace and slaughter our herds of cattle and sheep and fat goats to feast on at their banquets and drink our sparkling wine in reckless riot. So our property goes to waste. We have no champion like Odysseus to protect us, and I cannot possibly resist them. I'm weak and always will be, not a fighting man. Yet I would surely turn against them had I strength. Such conduct is an outrage. It's a disgrace to see how my property is ruined. You should be ashamed of yourselves. You should have more respect for the judgment of your neighbors watching this, and you should fear the wrath of the gods that never tolerate sin, but bring on retribution. In the name of Zeus in heaven, in the name of justice, stop, my friends, stop and leave me alone with my grief.
Telemachus, your speech is proud, and your temper is violent. How dare you try to throw blame and disgrace on us? Not we, the suitors. We are not responsible. It is your mother dear, that most resourceful lady. Now it is 3 long years, and fast approaching 4, since she's been tormenting our very heart and soul, in part by giving hope and promises to us all, and sending messages which are all hypocrisy, partly too by a strange and complicated trick.
Good young men, my suitors, since my husband is dead, do not hurry me into marriage. Let me finish the weaving of this shroud first. It is a burial garment for my husband's father, and I should be ashamed if he, rich as he is, were buried without a shroud.
These were her words, and we generous hearts believed her. Then she began and wove the garment every day, and every night she sat by torchlight and unwove it. And so for 3 long years she cheated all her suitors. But when the 4th year came and time was rolling on, one of the women in the house betrayed the secret, and we detected her unraveling her work, so that she had to finish it, much against her will. Now here is your reply from the suitors. Mark it well, remember it, and let all the other Achaeans know it. Send your mother out of the house. Tell her to marry any man she likes and whom her father approves. For we shall go on eating you out of house and home as long as she continues in her present purpose. And we shall never go to our homes or anywhere else until she chooses a man, whoever she likes, and marries.
Antinous, I cannot drive her out of the house. She gave me birth. She brought me up. Odysseus is far away, whether alive or dead. But heavy compensation must be paid to her father should I send her back. Yes, and my own father will punish me also. So will the gods when my mother calls down upon me bitter curses of hate leaving her home. And all my fellow citizens will be indignant. No, I shall never tell her to go.
But you, if you have any sense of shame among you, leave my house at once. Look elsewhere for your dinner. Visit each other in turn and eat what belongs to you. Yet if you think it is a nobler thing and better to waste the substance of a single defenseless man, then go on, ruin me. I pray the immortal gods that Zeus in time may send retribution upon you, that you may perish here in my house unavenged.
With this, the story of the Odyssey has started. Or rather, the stories. It has a magnificently complicated plot, the Odyssey. Homer tells not one tale, but three interlocking tales. First, how Odysseus escaped from the lonely island and made his way home, and, against tremendous odds, recaptured his kingdom. Second, the story of his young son, Telemachus, growing up and becoming a man. And third, a long, long flashback, the tale of Odysseus' adventures in his years of wandering, between the capture of Troy and his being marooned on the distant island. How skillfully Homer seizes your interest at once. He doesn't begin at the beginning. You get that through the flashback. He doesn't begin in the middle. He begins very near the end and moves right into the heart of the action, only a few days away from the final crisis. When he launches the story, the three main characters are far separated from each other.
Telemachus, as we have seen, is at home, but alone and friendless in his father's house, taken over by the tough suitors and the faithless servants. As for Odysseus, he is 1,000 miles away on the remote island. He has been living with a beautiful nymph of the island, Calypso. She has offered to make him immortal if he will stay there as her husband. This would appeal to many a younger and shallower man, like being shipwrecked on Balahai and living there forever. But for Odysseus, it is not like real life. For him, real life means a home, a family, responsibilities, a place in the world. Without real life, Odysseus feels as though he were already dead. The problem is too difficult. Not even the cleverest man in the world can solve it without the help of the gods. And a god does help. The third main character, Athena, remembers Odysseus and puts his case before the council of the gods.
My heart is torn with grief because of wise Odysseus, unhappy man, far from his friends, lonely and sad, away on an island lost in the center of the sea. He yearns with all his heart to die, and yet you pay him no attention, Father. Did he not please you by doing sacrifice beside the ships in the plain of Troy? So why should you now hate him, Zeus?
My child, how could I ever forget the gallant Odysseus? It is Poseidon who harbors relentless anger against him for his son, the Cyclops, whom he blinded. But come, let us consider, one and all, a plan to bring Odysseus back. Now, Hermes, carry this message to beautiful Calypso. Odysseus must and shall go home. He will sail alone for 20 days at sea, in danger, on a raft, till he arrives at the rich island of the Phaeacians. They will honor him highly and give him splendid presents and take him in a ship to his beloved home.
From this point, the three main characters begin to move towards one another. Athena leaves heaven. Disguised as a human being, a sea captain, she visits Telemachus and starts him on his quest. Odysseus, helped by Calypso, makes a sailing raft, and off he starts across the sea. Still pursued by the stormy anger of Poseidon, he lands on the island of the Phaeacians. And now comes the long flash back through the past 10 years. Homer brings it in so easily that it seems quite natural, although it's a triumph of the storyteller's skill.
Odysseus is being entertained at a banquet by the king of the Phaeacians. Clearly a noble stranger, he has not told his name. A blind minstrel has just sung a song telling of the last days of the Trojan War, the adventure of the wooden horse, of which Odysseus was the leader. Now, at last, reminded by the minstrel's song of all that he has been through, Odysseus reveals his true identity.
I am Odysseus, son of King Laertes, famed on earth beneath, in heaven above, for cunning. My home is Ithaca, standing out in the sea and marked by one tall mountain forest-clad. All round are many other islands lying close together, further east and closer to the mainland. But Ithaca sits low on the horizon westwards. She is a hard, rough place, but a good mother of men. Nowhere in the world is any place sweeter than home.
And now, in a splendid long narrative, Odysseus tells of his exploits since the fall of Troy. How he heard the bewitching song of the sirens, but escaped. How he was captured by the cannibal giant, Polyphemus, but made him drunk and blinded him and got out of his cave by a trick. How he outfaced the sorceress Circe, who had changed his men into animals and made her undo her magic. And how he ventured to the frontiers of the land of the dead and spoke with ghosts.
In themselves, these are fine stories, but within the whole poem, their purpose is to make us realize how daring and resourceful Odysseus is. Not only brave, but endlessly inventive. Yes, and lucky. So, they prepare us to accept the astonishing ingenuity and gallantry which he is to show against all but impossible odds in the final battle with the suitors. After hearing his story, the Phaeacians put him on board ship and take him to Ithaca, his home. He is still alone and unknown to everyone, but he is no longer a penniless vagabond, for his hosts, the Phaeacians, gave him rich gifts of honor. Safely home is Odysseus, but he is not safe at home. What would happen if he simply walked straight to the door of his house and ordered the suitors out? There are over 100 of them. They would simply pick a quarrel with him and surround him and finish him off. It's easy to be bold and rush into the thick of things and start fighting and get killed and be a dead hero. It's more difficult, but it's far better tactics to be clever. And that is what Odysseus does. Instead of going straight to his house, he goes far out into the country where his pigs are kept, a miserable, lonely place, but secure. And there he learns from his servants what has been going on, and at last he meets his son, Telemachus.
Now, son, give me a list of the suitors. Count them over. I want to know how many and how strong they are, and lay out in my mind a full plan of campaign to see if you and I together can attack them without assistance, or will need others to help.
Father, I have heard you praised for strength and wisdom, but what you say is far too bold. 2 men alone could never fight so many warriors. There are far more than 20. Well, listen to the count. 52 in all come from Dulichium, all young and strong, all chosen men with 6 retainers. From Sami, 24, and 20 from Zacynthus. From Ithaca itself come 12 men of the best. While we have only 4 servants beside ourselves. If we stand up inside the house against so many, then you may pay in blood and tears for your revenge. No, Father, what we need is allies. Think of some.
Allies. We have Athena. We have Father Zeus.
Excellent allies, yes, but they are in heaven.
No. When they hear the war cry, they will be beside us when you and I attack the suitors in our palace.
Sharp swords and slash the hollow horse to pieces, or else to drag it to the cliff and hurl it over, or let it stand untouched as an offering to the gods. This last indeed was their decision and their doom. For later out they poured, the sons of the Achaeans, leaving their ambush in the horse, and sacked the city.
That, we believe, is how the Odyssey was sung by Homer. And for hundreds of years after he died, when the Odyssey and that other great heroic tale, the Iliad, were the most popular poems in Greece, they were still spoken at big public concerts by professional reciters who knew both poems by heart and declaimed them as dramatic poetry. The Odyssey is a poem, then, with fine language and stirring rhythms and many beautiful descriptions. For instance, the island and the home of the nymph Calypso, who kept Odysseus prisoner for 7 years.
Around her cave there grew a grove, luxuriant with alder trees and poplars and sweet-scented cypress. Birds with long, slender wings nested among the branches. And there about the cave mouth ran a pliant vine, flourishing in its pride, laden with clustered grapes. 4 springs were gushing out in cascades of bright water. On every side were meadows rich with greenery and violets. A sight to gladden even a god.
As well as beautiful descriptions, there are splendid passages of narrative in the Odyssey. One of the best, Odysseus, telling how he blinded the Cyclops.
The giant spoke, leaned back, and fell supine. Then rolled his huge neck round sideways, overcome by sleep, the conqueror. Out of his mouth came wine and gobbets of human flesh spewed up in drunken vomit. Now, I pushed the pole into the heart of the fire till it grew hot and glowed and sparkled terribly. And then God gave us courage. I, with my comrades, pulled it out of the fire and thrust it into his eye. While they pressed it down, I stood above and turned it hard, like a ship's carpenter drilling into a plank. His eyelid and his brow were seared by the fierce heat. His eyeball burned away. The nerves swelled up and burst. He roared a hideous roar that boomed all round the cave, and wrenched the pole, smeared with blood, out of his eye.
As well as such splendid narratives, there are many eloquent speeches. Even the hideous Cyclops could make a touching speech, again, as related by Odysseus.
The giant sent his sheep to pasture every morning. So now he rolled the stone back from the mouth of the cavern and sat beside the entrance, groping with hands outspread to catch one of my men walking out with the sheep. But I was not so foolish. I devised a scheme. I took the giant's rams, young, strong, and thickly fleeced, counted them off by threes, and tied each 3 together, and lashed one man beneath the ram of the 3. Chose out the strongest ram of all, clasping him beneath the fleece, hiding there, So all my men escaped, tied safe beneath the sea. Last went my ram, weighed down with his wool and my cunning. The giant stroked his shaggy back and spoke. My ram, my favorite ram, why are you leaving the cave, last of all the flock? You were never a laggard before. No, you were always the first, stepping fast and lively to crop the tender grass and drink at the river springs. Always first at sunset, eagerly returning to shelter here. Now, you are last of all. And why? Grieving for your master, whom a bad man blinded with his vile companions, making me drunk with wine.
So, when we read the Odyssey, we must remember that it is not simply a fine story, but a glorious piece of poetry. No translation is as beautiful as the original poem. Partly this is because ancient Greek was such a noble language, so much more resonant and various than all modern languages, including English. Listen, you've just heard Odysseus recalling the speech of the Cyclops.
My ram, my favorite ram, why are you leaving the cave, last of all the flock? You were never a laggard before.
Now in Greek, there are more different sounds, and the words come in many more patterns of rhythm, so that, apart from the meaning, it actually sounds more attractive and interesting. Krie pepon, timai hode diaspios, esua melon hystatos, uti paroske lelaimenos erchiai oion. It actually makes even the brutal giant sound eloquent, doesn't it? Homer had a wonderful meter to work with, a marching, swinging, dactylic hexameter, more powerful than anything which has yet been invented in English. But first and foremost, Homer was telling an exciting story. His audience, like all audiences since storytelling began, wanted to know the answer to a simple question: what happens next?
Now you go home at early dawn and watch the suitors. And then the swineherd will take me to the city, disguised as a poor, old, ugly, miserable beggar. If they mistreat me in the house, restrain yourself. No matter how I suffer, you control your feelings. Yes, even if you see me dragged headlong to the gates, watch and endure in silence. Of course, you can suggest they drop this foolish mischief. They will not listen. Not for a moment, no. The day of their doom is near.
And now, Odysseus makes himself into a new and strange kind of hero. This was a brilliantly original idea of Homer's. In a heroic age, strength and courage are everything. It is impossible to imagine any of the other Homeric heroes, Achilles, Agamemnon, Nestor, pretending to be a weakling or a beggar, even to win a victory. But Odysseus is an untypical hero.
Listen to me, suitors of mine. You have been trying to eat and drink this house away in gluttony, in the long absence of its master. Your pretext is that you want to marry me and take me away. Here is the prize, in a contest open to you all. I shall lay down the mighty bow of King Odysseus. Whoever is the most expert at stringing it by hand and shooting through the row of a dozen standing axes, that man can take me. I shall follow him and leave this rich and lovely house, a house where I was married, though I shall long remember it, seeing it in dreams.
Come on, you suitors. Here is a prize open to all. A woman such as none can find in all Achaea, in Ithaca itself, or on the dark mainland. Come on, then. No evasions or excuses. Don't postpone the bending of a bow, but let us see you. Why, I myself will make a trial of the bow, and if I bend and string it and shoot through the axes, then I will not be sad if my mother leaves me to go with another man. I shall stay here myself, for I shall be well able to fight my father's battles.
Here, give me that bow.
Listen, you men. I have a special word to say. Suppose Odysseus should appear out of the blue, miraculously. How would you two behave? Would you side with the suitors or defend Odysseus?
God, Father in heaven, grant that miracle. Then you will see what we are worth in strength and courage. Home at last. I am home after so many trials. After 20 years, I have reached my country at last. And now I know at least that you will welcome me of all the servants here. I shall reward you later. But now, listen well. Dan, Dennis, look at the expert. Tiger with a bow. No doubt he has a dozen just like that at home, or else he plans to make one. Damn destiny, so he were a champion. Vagabond. If he can string it, I wish him luck. He struck it. So, that is settled, that decisive competition. But now another target which no one ever hit. Let me take aim at that. God guide my arrow straight! You dogs! You all believed that I would never return home from the land of Troy. And so you raped my house and paid your sneaking court to the wife of a living man, with no respect for the gods who dwell in broad heaven, and no sense of shame before the judgment of men. But now, you are tied tight,
And the knot that ties you is death!
So, in a tremendous scene of retribution, Odysseus returns and recaptures his home. The man who had fought for 10 years in the Trojan War was irresistible in his own house with his son at his side and faithful servants to cover him. But he had still one more trial of will, one more test of cunning.
Telemachus, my son, let your mother test me. We have our secrets, she and I, known to us alone. Now I look filthy and wear these wretched beggar's rags. How could she honor me or say I was the man? Let us bathe ourselves and put on cleaner clothes. Then we shall see. Strange woman you are. Of all the women alive, the gods have surely given you the hardest heart. No other wife in the world would be so obstinate and turn away from her husband after 20 years. Well, I shall sleep alone. Make me a bed out there. She has a heart as hard as iron.
A strange man you are. I'm not scorning you. I'm not even surprised. Well, I remember your face as it was when you sailed away from your home to Troy. So now, Eurycleia, make his bed outside the bedroom which he built with his own hands. Bring out the bed and spread it deep with blankets.
Woman, what you have just said wounds me to the heart. Who has moved my bed? It would be difficult to move without a miracle. There was an olive tree inside the site of my house, well grown with flourishing leaves and a trunk as thick as a pillar. Round this I built the bedroom, adding the door and the roof. And then I cut the leaves and branches of the olive, smoothed down the trunk and straightened it and cut it square. And this I made the bedpost rooted in the ground. Now I do not know if my bed is still in place. Has anyone cut through the trunk of the solid tree and moved it away?
Odysseus, please do not be angry. Forgive me because I did not welcome you from the first moment. My heart was always frozen with anxiety in case some stranger came and cheated me with lies. But you have clearly told the secret of our room, which no one knew but you and me and one maidservant, the faithful girl who guarded the door of our room. And now my cold, hard heart grows warm and soft for you.
The Odyssey is an epic poem, a tale of heroic conflict. But it is not a tale with one single theme running all through it from beginning to end. It's a story with three different themes skillfully interwoven, and all three based on one central moral truth. Two of the themes are realistic. They're about recognizable people in situations which exist today, just as they existed 3,000 years ago.
One of these is the theme of the soldier, Odysseus, returning home. The second,
Telemachus, give me the bow of the mighty king,
is the theme of the young boy, Telemachus, growing up to become a man. But the third theme is not realistic. It is fantastic. The wanderings of Odysseus among witches and ghosts, giants and monsters, happen beyond the frontiers of real life.
Now, in all three themes, one great moral truth is worked out. It's this: even against terrible odds, intelligence will win if it is combined with bravery and determination. Courage plus cleverness cannot be beaten. It's not enough to be brave without brains. It's not enough to be clever without guts. Both are necessary, both brains and bravery. Telemachus develops them both. Odysseus has them both.
In his last battle, Odysseus faces the most fearful odds and wins. But before this terrible struggle with the suitors, he shows his heroism in a more difficult way, by letting himself be humbled. Dressed as a miserable beggar, he takes insults and abuse in his own house. And while others sleep warmly indoors, he has to lie down outside, wrapped in his cloak. At this point, even Homer ridicules his hero. As Odysseus lies there brooding on his revenge, Homer says,
"And so his heart obeyed him well, and was steadfast unflinchingly. But he lay tossing side to side, just as a man beside a hearty blazing fire holds out a huge sausage full of fat and blood, turning it back and forward, eager to have it grilled. So now Odysseus turned this way and that."
Of all the similes in the Odyssey, this is the most trivial. Homer wants even us to laugh at the untypical hero, rolling back and forward sleeplessly like a grilling sausage.
There is an old Greek saying, God helps those who help themselves. The god who helps Odysseus is Athena, Pallas Athena. She is the personification of wisdom, and so she naturally sides with the clever hero. Just so, in the Bible, God helps those who prove themselves worth helping. When Joshua, at the head of the Israelite army, is invading the promised land, the Bible says, the Lord delivered the enemy into Joshua's hands. In the Bible, God favors strong men and gives them greater strength. In the Odyssey, Athena favors an intelligent man and gives him greater wisdom. Even when, without knowing who she is, he tells her a lie, she admires him and favors him for it.
I come from the Isle of Crete, far across the sea. I did a murder there. Now I am an outlaw.
Only a master of cunning, only a genius at deception could outdo you in trickery. Only the devil himself, you indefatigable cheat. Not even now, not even in your own home will you tell the truth. No, what you really love is complicated deceit. Come now, abandon these evasions. You and I are experts. You are best of all mortal men at plots and plans and storytelling. I am craftiest of all the gods. You did not know me, Pallas Athena, daughter of Zeus.
True goddess, you are difficult to recognize. And yet I remember well how gracious you were to me. Now, lady, weave a cunning plan for my revenge, and stand beside me breathing valor into my soul, as once when we destroyed the glittering crown of Troy. If now you will support me with such energy, my gray-eyed goddess, I can fight 300 men.
The first theme in the Odyssey, then, is one which has been developed time and time again since Homer, the return of the soldier. A lonely man coming home after long absence and struggling to throw interlopers out of his house and recapture the love of his family. The second theme also is common in Western literature, the problem of a boy growing into manhood. Young Telemachus, if he is to become a real man, has to break away from his mother and assert himself against the suitors who have invaded his home. He has to find his father and prove that he is a worthy son. It's Athena, goddess of wisdom, who helps him to grow up. She gives him guidance, but it is Telemachus himself who makes the effort. At first, he is in despair.
Lost. My father is lost to sight and knowledge, leaving tears and anguish to me. I have a life of misery. The noblemen and princes of the neighbor islands are paying court to my mother, wasting my household. She will neither refuse their vile offers nor yet bring the thing to an end. Meanwhile, they devour my home greedily, and one day soon they will destroy me too.
Poor boy, you surely need Odysseus, but let me tell you what your strategy should be.
Tomorrow I set out for Sparta and for Pylos. Fill me 12 jars of wine and 20 pounds of flour, and keep this secret. I shall come for them this evening after my mother leaves the hall and goes to rest.
Oh, why, my boy? Whatever made you think of such a plan? How could you dream of traveling abroad? An only son, and so much loved. No, stay with us.
Comfort yourself, my dear. God is behind my plan. But swear you will not reveal this to my mother.
And thus, prompted by Athena, Telemachus sets out on his travels, the second stage of his education, to meet older, more experienced men and learn how to behave. The final stage in Telemachus' development, as shown by Homer, is to face opposition fearlessly, even at the risk of his life.
Telemachus, now is the time to face the battle. The final test of manliness and excellence, and learn how not to bring disgrace upon your fathers, whose strength and courage are renowned throughout the world.
Watch me, dear father, now, and you shall see my courage brings no dishonor on the house of brave Odysseus.
Now, at last, Telemachus is a man, like his father. Modern critics make a great deal out of his search for Odysseus. They treat it as a symbol of a universal experience. They say that every young man growing up has to search for his father and find him. Sometimes this means recognizing that his father is not a tyrant who wants to repress him, but a wise and friendly companion who wants to guide him. Sometimes it means breaking away from his mother and deciding to model himself on a man rather than remaining a protected child. But there's an interesting point here. None of the Greek and Roman critics who knew the Odyssey so well ever suggested that Telemachus' search for his father had a symbolic meaning. Does this mean that a symbolic interpretation is wrong?
What about the third theme of the Odyssey? The theme of the wanderings of Odysseus, his adventures with cannibal giants, enchanted islands, and supernatural beings. All the stories in this section are exciting. In every one of them, Odysseus shows the same courage and resource. Still, they are not at all like ordinary life. What are we to think of them?
I have a suggestion. You must have noticed how much trickery and disguising and downright lying there is in the Odyssey. In the other Homeric story, the Iliad, practically everyone speaks the truth straight out. But Odysseus in the Odyssey is one of the most remarkable liars of all time.
Now tell me truly, answer all my questions straight. Who are you? And your home and family, where are they? What sort of ship and sailors brought you overseas to Ithaca? I'm sure you did not come on foot.
Right, I shall answer all your questions truly. My story is a long one, though. I'll cut it short. In Crete, that spacious island I was born and reared, the son of a rich man, Castor Hylacides, but illegitimate. After he died, my brothers split up his property and left me a poor pittance. So, I became a pirate, roaming the wide seas.
Enter, stranger.
Later, disguised as a beggar, Odysseus even tells an elaborate lie to his own wife, Penelope.
Now, stranger, answer me this question first of all. Who are you? And your home and parents, where are they?
My lady, very wise and beautiful are you, and famous far and wide and much beloved too. I beg you, do not ask about my home and family, lest I should break down and weep remembering them.
I also have my sorrows since I lost my husband. But tell me who you are. Come, where was your birthplace? You were not born of rocks and trees as in the proverb.
Well, I shall tell you, deeply though it grieves me. Far off in Crete, there is a rich and famous city
called Knossos. There King Minos ruled in days of old. His son, Deucalion, was my father. I am called Ethon. Once long ago, I saw Odysseus there. He was my guest at Knossos. I remember yet he wore a crimson cloak, double, with a gold clasp, showing a hound that clutched a dappled fawn, still struggling.
Inventions, tall tales, fictions. In fact, the whole Odyssey glorifies one side of the Greek character which is played down in the Iliad. The Greeks were clever. They admired an ingenious trickster. Now, what do you think? Are we supposed to believe all the stories Odysseus tells?
Now, for 9 days, a northern tempest drove us on across wild seas. We reached a landfall on the 10th. Among the lotus eaters who get food from flowers, I sent 3 crewmen out on a reconnaissance. The lotus eaters did not try to kill the men, but gave them lotus fruits, sweet as honey in savor. When once they tasted that, they quite forgot their mission and wished to stay forever with the lotus eaters, feeding on lotus fruit and quite forgetting home. They wept when I arrested them and took them back to the ship and tied them up and threw them in the hold.
Wonderful stories, these. But are we supposed to believe them? Remember, Odysseus has no witnesses to prove or disprove what he says.
Now we sailed up the narrow channel, sick with fear. To port was the monster Scylla. To starboard, Charybdis. With fearful roars, she sucked the salt sea water down and belched it seething up again as high as the cliffs. As often as she sucked the salt sea water in, the boiling depths were all revealed. The crags around roared horribly. And down below in the abyss, dark earth and sand were seen. My men were panic-stricken. And while they watched Charybdis, waiting for their doom, the monster Scylla snatched 6 of my sailors up out of the ship. I saw their arms and legs struggling within her clutch. I heard them calling me. I watched them writhing while the monster lifted them and then devoured them all within her cave, screaming and stretching out their hands to me in agony. Of all my trials and afflictions on the sea, that was the grimmest sight and the most pitiful.
Can we be sure that Odysseus was not inventing all these stories like his fake autobiographies?
In hell among the damned, I saw King Tantalus condemned to stand in a lake. The water lapped at his chin. He thirsted for it madly, but could never drink. Whenever he bent down his head in eagerness, the water ebbed away to nothing, leaving only the dark earth around his feet, miraculously parched. Above his head grew lofty trees, heavy with fruit, pears, apples, figs, and olives, and sweet pomegranates. Whenever he stretched up his hand to grasp the fruit, a gust of wind would carry them away up to the sky.
Perhaps all the tales told by Odysseus were one gigantic confidence trick.
Then there was Sisyphus enduring punishment, pushing a monstrous rock uphill with all his might. With every muscle strained, he heaved it up and up, laboriously struggling. But when he was just about to reach the summit, gravity turned it back, and down with a rush and a roar, the ruthless rock rebounded.
If it was not a confidence trick played by Odysseus, it is certainly one by Homer himself. Long before his time, folk tales had been circulating around the world. He took a wide selection of these, attached them to the name and personality of a real hero, Odysseus, and made the Odyssey. I believe he was the first man who deliberately made up a long story to give artistic pleasure to his heroes. If so, the Odyssey is the first real, extant piece of fiction in our world, the ancestor of all our novels and stories and romantic tales of adventure. It's a masterpiece of plot. But a plot alone will not make a great book. Homer is tremendously skillful at exploring the mysteries of human nature. The Odyssey is particularly good at characterizing different types of women.
There is, for example, a charming young princess, Nausicaa, who gives clothes and food to Odysseus when he is shipwrecked on her father's island. There is the lovely witch Circe, who tries to turn Odysseus into an animal, as she has already turned some of his crewmen. She fails. Then there's a glimpse of that exquisite beauty who started the whole thing. The Trojan War, the wanderings, and all the disasters and near disasters. Helen of Troy. And best of all the women, there's the faithful wife, Penelope, who, in her own way, is as clever and brave as her husband. But the characters of the men are even better done than the women, and there are more of them. The tough, brutal suitors. Nestor, wisest of the Greek kings. The king of the Phaeacians. Eumaeus, who, in spite of being a slave keeping pigs, is noble at heart and utterly loyal to Odysseus. And best of all, young Telemachus and his father.
Odysseus is a really complicated character. After he solves all the problems of getting back to Ithaca and reconquering his home, what do you think will happen? Will he settle down and live happily ever after? Can he settle down? Does he not personify the passionate love of roaming and exploration which is fixed in most men's hearts? 3 great poets thought he did. The English poet, Lord Tennyson, imagined Odysseus' thoughts just before he set sail once again.
I cannot rest from travel. I will drink life to the lees. I am become a name. Much have I seen and known. Cities of men and manners, climates, councils, governments, and drunk delight of battle with my peers far on the ringing plains of windy Troy. Yet all experience is an arch, wherethrough gleams the untraveled world, whose margin fades forever and forever when I move. It is not too late to seek a newer world. My purpose holds to sail beyond the sunsets and the bars of all the western stars until I die.
500 years before Tennyson, the medieval Italian poet Dante, writing his vision of hell, saw Odysseus there among the damned. He was tormented in flame for inventing the wooden horse, and his soul, speaking with a tongue of living fire, told Dante that he had found it impossible to settle down. He had set out once again and sailed into the Atlantic Ocean.
We turned our back upon the morning star and flew with oars for wings towards the west. 5 times the moon had risen, 5 times set, when right ahead there loomed a mountain, dark and distant. Our world has no higher peak. We cheered to see it, then wept with terror. A hurricane roared out and struck our bow, whirled round the ship and the sea 3 times, and then the prow plunged down. Another took command. And so at last, the sea closed over us, and the light was gone.
In our own time, the poet of modern Greece, Nikos Kazantzakis, wrote a still stranger sequel to the adventures of Odysseus. Its theme is the same as that of Dante, but its moral is the exact opposite. To push on into the unknown is not the damnation, but the salvation of man. Now, was Homer's Odysseus like this? Would he go off again?
We have not yet passed through the last frontier of all our troubles. I must suffer many more. Tiresias the prophet's ghost foretold it all, that day when I went down into the house of death. He ordered me to visit many lands and cities, walking and carrying with me the oar of a ship, until I reached a country where they did not know the sea and never heard of ships or saw an oar. And when I met a man who saw the oar on my shoulder and said it was a winnowing fan for threshing grain, then at last I could fix the oar in the ground and sacrifice and pray to Poseidon, Lord of the sea. And then I can come home and pray to the gods and rest among my people, calm and happy. This is my fate.